How's it going? All right. Second last stream of the year, just in case you were counting. Next week will be the last one for 2022, because I think CG Cookie goes on a break and everything. But what are we doing today? Well, I thought a really good topic came up last week. Can you create brushes, custom brushes for grease pencil? And so I'm going to take you through a couple of really simple steps creating brushes directly in Blender. One, obviously, we're going to do in grease pencil. But this will really open up what is possible with drawing and so on. So let's begin with a default file. Let's see. I think I want to go with, I'll just get a 2D animation file here, and I'll just have to adjust my screen slightly so that I can make room for me. There we go. There we go. Awesome. And what do I need here? Do I need a shader editor? No, I don't. No, I can leave that as is. Right. So we're looking through a camera. And so, yep. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my resolution of my camera to something square. It can be anything, really. The resolution isn't that important, but generally, when it comes to brushes, you know what? I'm going to school you in this. Because brushes are textures, right? You're not going to zoom right up to see a super clear clarity thing. These are going to be like little PNG cards that are going to be painted on. And so something around 512 by 512 is possibly as big as you want to go, because anything bigger is just going to make your system lag. It's going to be a really big brush to create. And why don't we get to creating something that is a little irregular? So I'm going to get my solid fill here, and I might set my color. Let's get my, yep, I do want an ink brush here, and I'll get my color set to black. And what I'm going to draw, actually no, because brushes work in the opposite. That's right, yes. Sorry. I am going to set my world color to black. All right. And momentarily I'll just take off my scene world just so that we can see what we're drawing. And then I am going to set my brush to white. And what I thought I might draw is something like a bunch of leaves, or a leaf. So let's see, how big is this brush? We need something nice and thick for the stem. So we're going to do a stem here, and let's go with a couple of leaves. Okay, so maybe we do... Oh, that'll definitely be something a little bit irregular, okay? Right, so look, that is a small enough brush, and I'm just going to change that just ever so slightly. Let's get our... And maybe we want to dissolve those so we just get a nice sort of a flat edge here. Okay, right, we've got a nice leaf shape with a really clean alpha. Okay. Oh, this is like live. I thought that is like the normal video. Yes, you're right. I'm just going to quickly check to see if the other one is streaming. So I'm just going to turn down my audio and see what's going on. Do I see myself? I do. Okay, so the CG Cookie site is also working. Just letting you guys know. All right, so where was I? Right, so I've created this shape, and I have a black background, so it's basically an alpha. And I can go ahead and render this. Let's see, let's get our compositor out. Right, so we've got this shape. Now, if this doesn't work, I'm going to have to create... Actually, do we need an alpha here? Just in case. We may need some transparency. Yep, there we go. And we probably don't need that. Okay, cool. I'm going to render this with an alpha. And I'll show you why in a moment. And let's go to CG Cookie, YouTube videos, custom brush. Right? And I'm just going to save one right here. I'm going to call this leaves. And we've got RGBA. It's a PNG file, so it'll carry the alpha. Great. I'm now going to go ahead and open a new instance. No, do we do a new instance yet? No. What we do, sorry, rehearsed this yesterday, a little bit flustered. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to render this leaf shape with a color. So let's take a look at this. Might bring my background up to white, go into my vertex paint mode, and let's select something leafy like this green. And we'll select all the points, and we'll set that color attribute, okay? Come on. Object mode, excellent. And we'll do another render, and this one we're going to save as the leaves thumbnail. Okay, we could probably do this one smaller, but we'll just do this for now. Okay, so now I'm going to disable this layer, and we'll go onto this lines layer. It's not only live polys, even in the future. Australia, yes, that's an Australia joke. I like it. All right, so let's just make this camera invisible, and I'll bring in my grid. And what we want to do is create a new brush. So we'll go over to our draw mode. I think I'm going to base this brush on my ink pen. Now to do this, we just have to click this numeral 2. So now we've got this ink pen .001. I'm going to call this texture leaves. And I'll just disable that for a second there. And I want to create a custom icon. Now I've already created the custom icon. I just have to navigate Blender to tell it where it lives. So let's see if we've got this custom brush. There's our custom icon, right? And it just takes a moment to load up. So this is why I suggest the thumbnail should be a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to make that a fake user right there. This is also going to be a dots stroke material, but I want to duplicate that so that our dot stroke isn't overridden. But I'll use the dot stroke as the base and click on this numeral 4, and let's call this texture leaves as well. Why not? Now we're going to change the stroke style from solid to texture, obviously, and we want to go to our custom brush. This time we're going to select the leaves alpha, okay, because the brushes work on the alpha channel of an image. Now, if we select any color, it doesn't have to be the same green. Let's go with something like a blue, all right? And we draw on here. I think we're going to need to, right, this is what I haven't done. We have to enable that blend, right? Make sure that blend is at 100%. And already you can sort of see how that brush is working. But no one's going to draw trees like this. Everyone's going to draw trees in sort of like a random pattern. So what we want to do is get some random values in there. And so do we want to enable the radius to be randomized via the pen pressure, or just randomly on the stroke? The UV is very important to randomize, and that one can be done with at the stroke level as well. So let's throw in a UV value and see what we get. Okay, nothing yet. Right, how about pen pressure? Still not working great. let's try a couple of other settings. So let's go with the radius, and let's bring in that. We need some jitter. That's what we need. So now, there we go. All right, now we're jittering that brush. And so anytime, it's not doing it when it's just one, but you sort of get the idea, right? So what we want to do is jitter it a lot. We don't want to stabilize that stroke. We don't want any post-processing because that really does smooth things out. I'm going to increase that radius. Maybe I'll put in some pen pressure and definitely the UV because we definitely want it to be a little bit random. Now, the other thing I am going to randomize is because the mode has been set to color attribute, let's get that sort of a greenish color back. And under the stroke, we will also randomize the hue. And I'm going to randomize this fairly... Oh, actually, no. The random of the hue shouldn't be too high. The randomness for these things... Okay, and obviously the value could probably be a little bit random too. And let's just see what happens when we do this, right? Whenever we draw, we get different colored leaves based on the color attribute, but then it sort of selects a random hue 50% either side of the color spectrum on that color. So maybe we reduce this a little bit, and maybe we put that on pen pressure too. So now if I press lightly, it's going to be one random value. If I press hard, it's going to be another random value. Still not liking it. Maybe we leave that... Right. So anyway, this is how we can get some random effects. And so, like, I can tinker with this. I can tinker with these settings more and more and more. Now, was this something that was important? It might be down the road. So maybe we just... Look, we'll leave that for now. But now that we've got this brush, all we want to do... just check that I'm still streaming here. Excellent connection. Good. Right. Great. Now that we've got this brush, we can save this brush, right? And so now that we've created it, how do we save it? Well, we have to click on fake user for the texture, fake user for this particular brush, and how do we know that it is going to be protected? It's got a little F there. And we always should have, I like to have a folder that's just something like texture library, where I can save all of my grease pencil brushes in. And so I can have like some select icons there. It's always good to have that because Blender won't necessarily save that texture to its own file structure, right? What you need to do is to have that there, because if you then send this file on to someone, they're not going to have that texture unless you pack it in the file. So the first thing to do, set yourself up a default brush folder for textures and save your thumbnails there. All right, so how do we import this brush? Well, let's open up a fresh version of Blender. Let's go to 2D animation and let's simply go File, Append, and now we'll go to the custom brush. Oh, actually, I've got to save that file, don't I? Let's save this file. Custom brush. Texture brushes. Okay, I'm going to save that file. And now I want to go to my, let's just refresh that. Go into my custom brushes. I'm going to click on fake user here. Append. And I can go to brushes. And I can just type in texture. There's my texture leaves brush that I created. I append that. And there it is. And we are ready to... come on. Right. I forgot to do one other thing. This is the tricky thing. I also have to fake user on the texture. So anything that we've added outside of Blender, we have to do a fake user. So I'm just going to resave that. Let's do that quick process again. File, new, 2D animation. Let's not save that. Append. And we should still be there. Texture, leaves, fake user, append. Now, if we go to... One more thing. Oh boy, the details I keep forgetting. We also want to put this little pin material to keep the material on the assigned brush. So that is going to pin that particular brush to the leaves. And we may as well do the same with the color attribute. All right, one more time, save. One more time, let's go new, 2D animation. File, append. Texture, leaves, select that. Fake user, append. Now, when I bring down that brush, yes, we've got texture leaves, we've got that color. In our materials, as soon as we begin to draw, there, that's what I wanted, the texture leaves material. That's a good suggestion, Omar. I like that. That should be part of our contest. The texture material will automatically be added to your material. So it's important that we do those steps. Our randomized settings. Oh, that's there. Okay, that's cool. Let's bring up that radius. Okay, and so now we've got these leaves that we could, if we wanted to, we could just draw a nice tree design. Right? And if we don't like that particular hue thing, we can just go, all right, you know what? Let's not, let's unpin that. Let's not randomize the hue. Why are we, oh, that's right, because it's on materials. But let's not randomize the hue. Let's not randomize the value. And let's paint in some dark shades. So we can go tree, right, our basic tree there. And then we want to go a little bit lighter, right? And then we've got this sort of tree design and then lighter still. And you can get, you know, some pretty good control just using that texture brush, right? All right. Now, because that's a texture brush, that means that it's going to always face the card that the texture is on is always going to face us. Sorry about the bump. Is always going to face us. How are we doing for time? Great. I've got 10 minutes to show you the really, really cool thing now. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is, can you make a texture brush out of a 3D object? Quick comment here. I'm guessing it's somewhat possible to remake my Critter Brushes preset in Grease Pencil. I just need to know what and where most of the equivalent settings are. Yes, look, quick cheat. I have used Critter in the past to do things like graphite pencil stuff. So the Critter brushes are really good. Render out a 512 by 512 image in black and white and use that as your brush setting. And so that way you can import a custom-made Critter brush into Blender. Back to Blender. This here is actually a sphere, right? And I've given it a glass shader so that it is going to reflect. I'm just going to take off the scene world and oh no, I need the scene lights, right? It's going to reflect some lights that I placed around it. Okay, so if I was to let's bring back our scene world, and I want to select a light here, right? I can move this light around, okay? And it does these really beautiful kind of effects. This is a, what do you call this? A plane with an emission shader set to a strength of 10. And because I'm working in Eevee, I've enabled screen space reflections. That means that anything in the scene is going to be reflected on reflective objects. So this isn't necessarily something that you need to do with cycles. I'm going to enable my transparency so that it will render with a transparent background. But remember, we need a black and white image. And this will render a black and white image. What it's not doing here is some kind of Fresnel. I really want a sort of a Fresnel effect. So I might mix that in. Let's go input Fresnel. Let's get a mix shader node in there. And let's bring in our Fresnel. And let's just do something like that. So now if we have no transparency, that's closer to a bubble. All right. And we now go to our compositor. And I've got this little node set up that's a bit of a cheat here. And I'm going to show you what this does. So first, let's just render out the image on its own. And I want this to be, yeah, let's go 512 by 512 again. And we might do this at 50%. So this could be our thumbnail, right? We've got transparency. We don't want to use the alpha. We want that. All right, that's our thumbnail. Let's save that as bubble thumbnail. Now, that cheat that I was talking about, right? If we render out this alpha, it's actually going to render out a card, and all the lighting information won't actually show up. Trust me on this, I haven't got the time to explain this right now, but what I'm going to do is, this is the image with a black background, okay? I've just mixed this over a mix node. Okay, I can enable the alpha or not, it doesn't really matter, but what we want to do is we want to alpha convert this, which means it's going to take the black and white image and turn that into its alpha. So now when I render, and I'm going to render this at 100%, let's go render. Okay, image, save as, and I'll call this bubble. Let's go back to this blend file here where I'm going to create a new brush. I might as well use the texture leaf setting so we've got a nice random value and everything. And I will click that too. I'll call this bubble. I'm going to give this a new thumbnail. There's my thumbnail for bubble. Okay, that's there. We're going to duplicate this texture. Texture bubble. Bring in the bubble texture. Okay. And now, have we got this bubble here? Yes, there we go. We've got bubble. And let's change the color to something like a nice sort of a. We'll start dark because this should work. No, that's not doing it. Bubble. Hello. What's going on? That's because we've pinned the texture leaves and we need texture bubble. Right. Okay. Now we've got this bubble texture. Now it looks way better if we get a very dark background. So let's darken this up and let's maybe make sort of like an undersea looking type thing. How are we going for time? Yes, I have 5 minutes. I can test this out. Now what I want to do is I think it was here. The input samples. Is that right? Let's see. What I want to do. No, that wasn't it. Let's get something really light so we can see the bubbles. Yep. Stroke. Post-processing. I think this is what we need to do. We need to drop the iterations. Simplify this quite a bit. Yes, there we go. So by post-processing and getting this simplify up, we can smooth, we can bring in some iterations. What this does is it actually breaks up. If I was to go into edit mode, instead of having a very dense line, you actually have a less dense line. You're going to still see the bubble as you draw it, right? But then it will do something like that. Now we definitely want, we don't want the UV to be randomized. We also want to do something very specific. Let's just take, I'll leave the hue because we want some rainbow, and maybe the value just a little bit, definitely the jitter. Under our materials for this bubble, we've got this thing called a line path, which means, do you see how these bubbles all have reflections in various directions? This doesn't look realistic because all the bubbles should have the same light direction, okay? If there's one light source or two light sources, all the bubbles should be showing that up. The way you fix this is with your alignment, you just set that to fixed. Now, all of the light is the same. You're not stuck here, however. You can also rotate that alignment. So if you need your light to be elsewhere, you can rotate that around. I think it's about 180 degrees. Gary, yes, the video will be up after the live stream. It is automatically archived, and I'll be doing a little bit of editing now. I learned how to take that horrible countdown off at the beginning. And so now what we've got is this bubble texture that we can draw, and then we can do things like run into 3D space. Let's get our proportional fall-off tool and further edit those bubbles in 3D space. What's more, let's go to Vertex Paint. Let's choose a color, say like this pink here, and instead of going to the nuclear option, I'm just going to color some of these bubbles in different colors just by vertex painting them in various shades. And so we can really go to town with how we can then affect it. But can you see that these bubbles, the alpha channel is what is driving the brush. If, for instance, have I got time? Yes, I've got 3 minutes to do this. Let's go back to this bubble here. Okay, and let's say we wanted to do something slightly different. Let's go with the transparency here, and let's render out something like this. Come on, show me. Show me what I rendered. Alpha, use alpha. Get that off. Great. Okay, so there's a transparent background around this bubble, and we've got a nice Fresnel, we've got some reflections, okay? If we save this, and let's just go bubble 2, okay? It's not going to register the black and white as alpha. It's actually going to look at an alpha channel. We'll go back to our previous bubble texture, and instead of trying to draw this all over again, I'm just going to replace that texture. Obviously we need to do that with the bubble 2. That's what happens. You see that? All the bubbles are now opaque because the alpha channel of that particular image was just a circle. Similarly, if you don't enable that transparency in your film settings, you're just going to get black squares with a circle on it. So it's important to sort of hack it a little bit, and if you create a black and white image in a 3D space, you need to feed that through an alpha convert node. I'll just bring that up for your reference once again. Okay, so we've got that transparency, that goes into the alpha channel, and this comes out so that when we render that, we get something with a transparent background. But if I was to then show you the image, let's open that image up. It looks like this, which is, you know, a little bit more accurate. And that gives us this wonderful bubble effect. It didn't do the little reflection thing, so I might have to look into that. That could be a cycles thing. Anyway, where are we? We're at 11:30. Okay, so those are a couple of ways that we can create texture brushes, custom texture brushes for ourselves. Then just sort of save them in a library somewhere, and don't forget to save thumbnails for those in a... Oh, they're after me. Yeah, that's what happens. Can you hear the sirens? Yeah, that's what happens if I go over 11:30. Sorry, Amber. So, yeah, don't forget to make yourself a little folder just to put all your brush thumbnails in. And then if you're going to send this off to someone, usually the best idea... Which one was it? This one? No, this one. Is to do something like... No, not you. This one. External data pack resources that should that should pack those thumbnails in there. But if anyone says, "Oh, look, it's just a grey square," just send them the thumbnail and let them deal with it. Hopefully, Blender will figure out a way to save your custom thumbnails in future. There's a couple of add-ons that work, but maybe that's a subject for another time. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I'll be back next week. Yes, and hopefully the stream on the CG Cookie site was working for people, if people were over there. But for now, this is Paul signing off. Thank you guys again for watching. Thanks for attending. And yeah, see you next week.